Hi, this is Marlon Lefebvre, you guys, and you are listening to Wildman and Steve.
You are about to listen to the intersection of faith, talk, and music. The Wildman and Steve show starts right now.
So, Steve, Mr. Segue, before we even get to the segue, as we know, we don't get to the segue until later on. I mean, in the first, at the end of the intros, when I turn it over to you for the segue. So I'm going to try to, I don't know what the word would be for this. This is like the pre-segue, you know, if there's such a thing, the pre-segue. How would you say that in Latin? How would you say pre-segue in Latin?
Pre-segue in Latin?
Yes, Mr. Latin expert.
Okay, you wouldn't. And
but I just did. So. Okay, so
I can tell you. I mean, it'd be something like ante sequor. But you know why that doesn't make any sense? Is because segue, by definition, is that which follows. Pre is that which comes before. So what you just said literally makes no sense.
I think it makes sense. I do. I think it, because obviously something that comes before, right? I mean, that's, you know, let's call it a double emphasis. You see that in language, right? In the Greek New Testament, you see double emphasis. Let's call it a double emphasis. So here's my double emphasis for tonight. Okay, we have a returning guest that you are going to introduce in just a moment. Okay. A lot has happened since we've had this guest on our show. A lot has happened. We have been through a lot. Number one, okay, we are able to see him. Last time, it was all audio, right?
Yep.
Number two, look at our hats. Wildman and Steve hats. Yep. We did not have these. We did not have these the first time. Nor did we have these Wildman and Steve t-shirts, right?
We didn't. This is true.
We are coming along. So I think it had something to do with his presence with us last time. His presence with us last time just was the beginning of, it just sent us to the moon. It just put us on the map. So that's my double emphasis pre-segue. So now this is the part of the show where I turn it over to Mr. Segue himself to introduce this amazing guest that we have already pre-segued.
As strange as all of that was, and I think our fans are going to acknowledge that was incredibly strange, and truly one of your oddest introductions. But may I make a request just before we get into this interview? Can we be a little bit more efficient with our shows? One of the things I've noticed, and this is something, and maybe we'll edit this out, you know, but just a little shop talk between you and me. It's like we interview a guitarist, and then we interview a vocalist. And every time it's one function in a band or whatever. Could we not kill two birds with one stone? And maybe sometime, interview somebody that like does a couple of things. Maybe I don't know. I'm just off the top of my head. Maybe like somebody who's like a drummer and a vocalist at the same time. You know, could that way we could get two for one? Do you think we could ever interview somebody like that?
I think it would be possible. It's similar to like the utility man in baseball, you know, where he can do like second base and shortstop and first base, or even going way back to Pete Rose days where he managed the team and played, you know.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's anybody out there that's that talented who could do two things like say, again, I don't know why I'm using like drums and vocals. I don't know why I'm using that as an example, but if we could find somebody like that, I think that would be great.
Well, you know what? It's amazing. It is amazing, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Segue has done it again. Because would you believe, Steve, that we have that very person with us tonight?
No.
Yes, we do. Absolutely. In fact, you can even hear him chuckling in the background. Now, I want to make something clear here. He is laughing with us. He is not laughing at us. Correct, Steve?
I hope so. I hope so. Maybe he's just laughing to hear us. I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Michael Feighan, drummer for Whitecross, King James, and now coming out with his own project that we're very excited about that Steve has already alluded to, which shows many of the talents that we didn't realize he had exactly. So, Michael, welcome back to the program, and how are you doing today, sir?
I am good, and I'm just listening to you guys thinking this is going to be hard for me to keep up with you two, man. This is like, I'm trying to write notes down on the Latin stuff. Never thought about the pre-segue thing.
Yeah. See, now let me just ask, before we get to the interview, as I guess want to hear from you, Michael, let me just ask you, would you agree with Steve that my attempt at an intro was strange?
Man, you're putting me in an awkward position right now.
Welcome to the Wildman and Steve show, where we put you in an awkward.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so how about you start telling us about this new project, but specifically, we know you as a drummer. That's what we've known you as for many years now, and now we see another side of you. And Steve and I have talked about how we saw you a couple times on stage on YouTube, singing along with Scott Wenzel with Whitecross. So we knew that it was there, but we've never heard it quite the way that you're coming out with it now. Tell us about remind us of your musical journey and how much did that involve other things other than the drumming that we know you for?
Yeah, I mean, ever since, it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day. And as a kid, I mean, I remember driving in the car with my dad because he was in the Air Force. And so we would live off base for like a year or two before he could actually get onto the on-base housing. And there was always music going on in the car and just singing. And later on, as I would get into other artists like Rod Stewart, Bryan Adams, just that, those kind of guys, Joe Cocker, one of my favorites, that could just really kind of, their emotions, it was like they were coming through the I was going to say cassette tapes, but that's really showing my age now. But like, whatever I was using, but it was like, man, I could just feel their heart. And so I've always loved singing, but I never thought I would be here talking to you both and saying I've got an EP coming out. I mean, I know we talked, a little while ago and I was pretty blown away, but now things have progressed even more and it's kind of crazy. I was talking to a lady from, I think it was Alabama Baptist, another interview I was doing yesterday. And she goes, yeah, that's kind of bizarre. You came up as a drummer, now you're here. And I'm like, exactly. It's like I was on this path and now all of a sudden God's got me going over here. But it's so exciting.
When we think about drummer vocalists, I mean, probably most people will think about Phil Collins, right? And I'm racking my brain. I'm sitting here thinking, what other drummer vocalists do we really know in music? And maybe I'm missing somebody. There's somebody obvious I'm not thinking about, but there aren't a lot of you guys out there. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think because Phil Collins, that guy was amazing. Just an amazing singer-songwriter, great drummer, great singer, great show, front man. The only other one that I can think that's, right up there with him, Don Henley. But Don Henley wasn't the drummer that Phil Collins is,
Yeah.
It's funny when you guys were saying that, I'm thinking, man, do they have maybe they got some other guy out here like Phil Collins.
Well, tell us then. So tell us all about what your role in this EP has been in terms of songwriting, the singing, obviously. Are you drumming on this? And then also, what other artists did you bring in to handle the other parts?
Oh, great question, Steve. And this is where I've been so excited and blown away. I mean, the last EP I did, I mean, obviously that was my first shot at it and just so excited. But this one is just really blowing me away. The God is open and it is just absolutely incredible. So we had a producer, we get his name, good gracious. There was a guy that he had worked with the Stones, and he actually did work with Joe Cocker, and but things kind of didn't work out. But the marketing company we're using, they knew that I was a Christian, and they said, "Hey, we know this guy Matt Bissonette, and we need to hook you guys up." And when he said Bissonette, I was like, man, is he talking about Matt Bissonette, Greg Bissonette's brother? And those two, they came out, they were on David Lee Roth's when he did Yankee Rose and all that stuff. And they played with Joe Satriani. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I said, are you talking about Matt Bissonette, the bass player? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I knew that they were believers because I've been a follower and fan of Greg Bissonette, the drummer, for so long. And I knew that he was a believer. In fact, I saw him at Drummers for Jesus in Dallas. And so I called Matt up and we hit it off. It was just crazy. And that guy is just a songwriting machine. It is just amazing. And the sweetest guy. And so like I sent him my old EP and some new material that I was working on, and we just really clicked. And then at one point he had called me and he said, "So are you going to play drums on this?" And I said, I can. And he goes, "I really think you concentrate on vocals because we want to make sure these vocals are, you know, top notch." And I was like, okay. And he goes, "And, you know, I could ask my brother Greg." And I said, "Wait a minute. Did you just say you're going to ask Greg Bissonette to come?" So he goes, "Of course." I said, done.
For the wounded and the lost, we can never pay the cost that we owe. For a moment, see the names etched on the wall. They defended one for all. You will not be forgotten. By faith and hope in God above, we stand together strong. We honor those who died for us and answered freedom's call. Upon this road to glory, together we all ride. An American old story that lives on deep inside. We're founded on a nation where all those can be free. And in our stars and stripes,
you
I
mentioned
still
something
believe.
that struck me, and I don't think it's completely off basis, but I heard you say it, Drummers for Jesus. Can you talk to us about that? Talk to us about that, because many of our listeners, that may be the first time they've ever heard of Drummers for Jesus.
Absolutely. It was Carlos. He played at a church in Dallas, and that was his desire. He wanted to have this event where he would bring in drummers that were in the secular world playing for secular artists that were believers. He brought in Tommy Aldridge, which I was so excited when I found out he was a believer. Vinny Colaiuta, I mean, drummers, if they know, he was with Sting and everybody, another really strong believer, and just a bunch of guys. And when I heard Greg Bissonette was going to be at it, man, I was like front row. And that, I mean, I'm talking like maybe 15, 16 years ago when I saw that.
Wow.
I think there's something with Tommy on YouTube with the Drummers for Jesus, because I as soon as you said Drummers for Jesus, I immediately thought of Tommy, because I feel like I've seen something of him with that or something like that on YouTube.
Yeah, it's amazing. I saw a clip where they were asking Tommy about that, like, you know, you're playing with, you know, guys like Ozzy and Whitesnake. How do you do that being a Christian? And I loved his response. He said, I'm not going to these guys and banging them on the head with the Bible. He goes, I'm living, walking out my walk as a Christian. And so they know who I am. They know what I'm about. And he goes, and they tend to come to me, you know, and they'll ask him questions. Kind of the same like with Matt Bissonette and Greg. Matt Bissonette is with Elton John right now. And Greg Bissonette is with Ringo Starr. And so, you know, I asked Matt about that. I said, is that tough? I said, man, you're one of the most prestigious. Yeah, you know, it's got all the bells and whistles. He goes, but it's tough because, he goes, there's not really any other people who are believers like I. He goes, but he goes, they're nice people. You know, he just tries to be the best example he can, you know, of a Christian. And I just thought, that's great. I'm like, that's awesome, man. He's like out in the world where, you know, some of these guys are only going to hear about Jesus or see someone who loves Jesus through him.
Secrets of the ages, we'll have to tell it all. Faces they change and life goes on. A dirty deed is done and there's nobody home. Heaven is near, calling you here. Heaven is for everyone. Heaven is near, calling you here. Heaven is for everyone. Gone but not forgotten. I hear he's coming soon. A critic of the master plays a different tune. Faces they change.
So tell us what are you wanting to do with this EP? So this is your primarily vocal project, but what are you wanting to accomplish with this thing?
You know, Steve, I really, when I got, this wasn't something that I, you know, for the last 10 years or 5 years or 2 years have, you know, was going, okay, this is where I want to go. It kind of just fell into my lap. I mean, it was just an open door that God, and going full force with it. And a goal to have, you know, a successful, but I still love playing with Whitecross, you know, and or King James. And I mean, that's just part of kind of like their family to me. So, but yes, this is like the primary focal thing right now.
So tell us, and our listeners will be interested as well. You know, Steve and I, of course, have checked out your video and checked out the new stuff, but in your own words, how would you describe it to your fans of what they should expect? Specifically, because anytime somebody sees your name, they're going to be expecting Whitecross or King James type of stuff. So explain what is this that you're working on, and is it similar? Is it completely another direction? How would you explain it?
Yeah, you know, I was trying. It's funny because I was talking with Matt, you know, Bissonette, who produced it with me, and we were talking about this, and it just has elements of obviously rock. That's just who I am. But it's also got elements of the more melodic type stuff, like the Bryan Adams that I've grown up on, the Rod Stewart, that kind of stuff. But it's just very, I would say, like contemporary rock pop-ish. But it's just so well put together, just with such top-notch musicians. And also another huge blessing was having Chris Lord-Alge mix the project. And he's like the best of the best out there. And it was just another open door. Matt Bissonette he is friends with Chris Lord-Alge, and he said, if we can get Chris to mix this, then you're going to be, at the top of you're going to have a very competitive project. And I was kind of floored, thinking, are you kidding me? Like, I couldn't believe that he knew and could get in touch with Chris Lord-Alge. So it's funny because the project I had before, when I would get some of the mixes back, and you'd probably go through it like about 5 to 10 times, with the mixing, okay, no, I like this, I don't like this. But with Chris Lord-Alge, the first mix I would get back, I couldn't find anything wrong. It was just so bizarre. I felt like I had to, but I was like, I just can't find anything I would change. I mean, he's pretty amazing.
Somewhere prayed for me. I really don't know who, and I really can't say when. It could have been my father, really don't know. It could have been my mother, no, I can't say for sure. When I was down, when I had doubt, caught in the storm of life and no way out. When I lost faith, when I lost hope, it was your prayers that brought me home. Someone prayed. So few are called to.
Well, because you've got two songs out, and you've got Somebody Prayed and I Still Believe. Am I right that both of those are going to be on the EP?
Well, the only one that's actually out right now is I Still Believe. As far as like being on, all digital platforms where people can actually get the song, okay, and the videos out on YouTube. Now with Someone Prayed, that was on the original EP that I did last year, but we did do a remix of that because, now with having Greg Bissonette and Matt Bissonette playing, and we had Jim Cox on piano, who was the keyboard player with Boz Scaggs, and he also played with Elton John. So that song was so special to me, and I talked to Matt and I said, man, I'd really like to redo this song now that we've got these A-list musicians in here. Yeah. So that's one of the songs.
So you redid that one. That's going to be on there. And then, like you said, the really big push just within the last week, at least before we were conducting this interview here, was the I Still Believe, which is the patriotic video that goes with it, which is really, really cool. I'm going to go ahead and ask the question, why another patriotic song? So you think about it, everything from John Philip Sousa right on to Lee Greenwood, God bless the USA, right? We've got patriotic music all over the landscape. Right. Why did you think that now is the time to have another patriotic song out there?
Great question. So the investor that I have is a very patriotic lover of our country, lover of God. And he said, Michael, if we do this, I would really like you to consider writing a patriotic song. And that really kind of took me back. I was thinking in my head, I can't believe he just said this. Because I was like, talk about something hard to pull off when you've got, like you said, the Lee Greenwoods and Susan. I mean, it's like, but I mean, especially Lee Greenwood. And you really, it's just a hard thing to get it to not be silly, I guess, or not be genuine sounding.
Right.
But the more we talked about it and just everything our country is going through, it was making more and more sense to me. And I talked to Matt Bissonette about it, and he was like, same thing, like, oh, wow, that's a tall order. And I sent him some lyrics that I had, and then he took it and within 2 or 3 days, he sent me a demo, and I just fell in love with it. But I mean, it really, my wife we were talking the other day that this 9/11 is going to be the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And she said, do you remember what happened that day or, and the days following? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, she said, it didn't matter what party anybody was with or black, white, yellow, whatever. Everybody was arm in arm and everybody was about America and standing together. And I said, golly, it's so true. And so that's what that's one of my goals for the song. I just pray that it's something to encourage people, that we can get back to that, because the country is just so divided right now. It's just crazy.
And I still believe upon this road to glory, together we will ride. An American old story that carries on inside. Duty on a country, dictate what we are to be. For the price of blood was spilled out for our liberty. With an appeal to heaven before us, Lord bless the USA. Lift your head and thank a good God for His mercy and His grace. 'Cause we're founded on this nation where all can be free. And in our stars and stripes I still believe. And I still believe.
Well, I don't know when you actually wrote the song and obviously recorded and filmed the video and so forth, but it just came out right around the time that we were learning about the attack in Afghanistan and the loss of so many lives, but particularly American service lives. And to think that, you had already written that obviously before that happened. So here comes your song and your video coming out right when this tragedy is hitting our news. And I'm thinking, really, in a certain way, thank you, Lord, for a song like that in such a time. And then, when this interview comes out, it's going to be released around the time that your EP comes out. But that video coming out, that song coming out at this time, I think there's a need for that sort of thing. So yes, there's the full-on Christian songs, there's the worship songs, the evangelistic songs, and so forth. We need that kind of building up too, though. And so I think that's a great choice to have on there.
Steve, it was, hearing you talk about that, it's so true, because when we initially wrote that song, me and Matt Bissonette, and the goal was to have it come out July 4th. Mm-hmm. But things just weren't ready. And everyone was a little discouraged, like, okay, well, we missed that, that door. And so the next thing was, I guess maybe Labor Day, but not knowing that right when it came out, like you said, when all this stuff happened in Afghanistan, all I can think of is like, God's timing. It was like, God, you knew what you're doing. So awesome.
Yeah. And it's also amazing. It was a couple years ago, I was talking with a classical guitarist that I know who was also had a degree in theology. And I wouldn't classify him as a believer necessarily, but he had his understanding of the belief system, the denominations. He was an expert in all of it. And one of the statements that he made to me that I never really thought of before was that every theological movement has had music to accompany it.
Oh, wow.
Look back through. And I'm thinking about that with what you're doing, not just with the idea of every time that a message needs to get out there, the message is always somehow accompanied with music. And that just reinforces the idea that how powerful music is, that's what brings people together, is music. So I'm saying that to say I appreciate what you're doing with this, but I'm going to put you on the spot just for a moment. And I'm just going to say, okay, not just for a moment. It's going to be several times, but I'm going to go ahead and do it just this once.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm going to say at least this once, what would you like to see the results be from your efforts with this song and with this project you're working on?
The results that I would like to see from the release of the patriotic song.
Right. And or the whole project itself. Like if you, your dream for the whole, what would you love to see as a result?
Oh my goodness. I mean, well, for the patriotic song, I mean, like I was just saying earlier, I would just love to bring encouragement, for people to bring hope again. That, this beautiful country of ours that was built on God is not lost, that there's still hope. And, as far as like the other songs on it, on the EP, there was a song called Joy of Life. My wife went through a very, very difficult time. We were in a hospital room for like about 10 weeks. She couldn't even walk anything. But it's a miracle of God where she's walking again and so much better. And now we are so excited about having a ministry. When we go out, I've told the investor, this is not just a music project. This is going to be a ministry to lead people to Jesus, to encourage people that God still heals today, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, whatever, And another song called Before Time Began is about, the first verse talks about my lyrics about Tatiana, my daughter, and just that, how we, go into Russia to get Tatiana. And I just knowing Matt through the project, and he has a son, and man, he loves his son's in college and plays minor league baseball, and he just adores his son. And I said, Matt, what if you wrote the second verse about your biological son? And he's like, oh, okay. And then the ending, the third verse, kind of ties it all in about how we are all God's adopted children. And so it came together so awesome. And the music that he wrote for it is so powerful. I can't wait for those to come out.
What's up?
my wife and I were talking, we're really excited about and just praying, God empower us for this ministry when we go out so we can really just minister hope and healing and all. So yeah, that's definitely our goals with this.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think you're going to see a lot. I think we'll see a lot of what God's going to do through that. Just what you said, a lot of the healing. I love the idea of the hope. I love the idea of the joy. All right, this is purely for me. Okay, so Wildman, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to ask a question for myself. This is not necessarily for the fans. Maybe for the fans. The fans may appreciate it, but I am totally asking this for Steve. Okay. Michael, what would it take to get you to have a professional recording of you doing that knocking on heaven's door, which Wildman alluded to earlier? We've seen it on YouTube. I don't know if that was a spur of the moment thing that night, or at least the version that's on YouTube, or what happened there. But when you talk about vocals like Joe Cocker, you talk about Rod Stewart, you talked about Bryan Adams, you've got that kind of a voice that can pull that kind of thing off. And when you did Knocking on Heaven's Door with your voice, I'm going, dude, that might be the best version of that I've ever heard. So,
oh my gosh.
Steve wants a for real, professional, downloadable version of that song, man.
That is so crazy, because I had another friend of mine, a guy named Scott Kilborn, who's followed Whitecross. He was actually at that show that night, Steve, with the Striper and Petra and them. And he's asked me the same thing. He goes, so is Knocking on Heaven's Doors going to be on this second EP? And I'm like, dang, man, I'm sorry I didn't get it. So I need to do that.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of that, we always ask our guests this, and we're just going to put this out there for you. Coming out with a new project. I know COVID puts a lot of dampers on a lot of things, but what do you foresee, or do you foresee a concert or a tour supporting the project?
Yes, absolutely. And, another bizarre turn in my career, my path, because I know I would have to hire a drummer because I just wouldn't be able to do all the songs like that. But I would want to also play at some point. But believe me, I've got people that I'm, once this can happen, lined up. So yes, that's definitely a huge goal, to be playing live dates with a band. Right now, I'm doing kind of like spot things, but it's with tracks because of all the COVID thing. But I can't wait to have a live band out there.
Logic set on fire.
so where can our listeners go right now to listen to what you already have, or where can they go right now to follow you or begin following you?
Well, I mean, if they want I Still Believe the Patriotic Song is out on all social media platforms. The video is on YouTube, and you can type in my name, Michael Feighan, I Still Believe. But the easiest way would probably be to go to my website, which is michaelfeighan.com.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. It's great to have you back, and excited about what you're doing, excited about what you have and what God has in store for you. We're going to be following this, and folks, like he said, michaelfeighan.com. That's where you can find all the information out about what he's doing there, and we're excited about that. I just one thought. I do envision this, from time to time. You've seen those cartoons, or even I think in real life segments of people, one person sitting down and playing a game of checkers, right? So I wouldn't mind seeing you run around the stage, going from instrument to instrument, and you just handle the whole deal, right?
Oh, I don't know if you'd want to see that, though. Maybe I can go back and forth with the drums.
Yeah, that may be the ticket seller, right there.
Right.
Yeah, but hey, we're looking forward to that. We want to thank you for taking the time. And at the beginning of the show, if you remember, we did the pre-segue thing. And by the way, Steve, I am making that a thing, whether you think it's nonsense or not. The pre-segue thing. I talked about everything that has changed since you were on our show last, and the hats, the T-shirts, and everything else. But you probably haven't got word of this yet. Maybe you have. But we have expanded now into a full Wildman and Steve University.
Wow.
And Steve is the dean of students right now, so he approves all applicants and all graduates. And so I'll let him say what he wants to say here at the end of this episode.
This is a rock and roll school, isn't it?
On behalf of Wildman and Steve University, it gives us great pleasure to award you, Sir Michael, with a degree of Doctor of Drums.
Man. Okay, now that just made my day.
Congratulations, sir. Yes.
I'm one of the alumni, right?
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
Officially, you're one of the alumni now. Yes. In fact, if you play your cards right, you may be the president of the Alumni Association.
Oh, there you go. Well, I'm gonna send a message to Michael Sweet and let him know that.
There you go.
Yeah, then we can have the battle of the Michaels going on.
Exactly.
Well, hey, so thank you. And seriously, you will get a diploma from us. You will get a diploma from Wildman and Steve.
I love it.
Because you graduated officially. And but we are looking forward to it. And folks, michaelfeighan.com. And anything else you want to say to your followers, listeners, or fans out there?
Follow the Wildman and Steve show for more exciting stuff on the horizon in the world of rock and roll.
All right.
Awesome.
My goodness. He might get 2 diplomas now, Steve.
Yeah, you see, you're figuring out what I'm doing, man.
That's awesome.
Great. Hey, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you guys so much. I'm serious. It really is such a privilege when you called me, and I was like, man, what a bunch of good guys. I'm just blessed to have friends like you.
It was such an honor to interview Michael Feighan from Whitecross and King James, and now with his own project. And what I was so moved by from this interview was how much he is desirous that the music that he's putting out there and the music that he is publishing, he wants everybody to stop the division and to come together. He mentioned the country, but I mean, especially in the church world, if we can just come together and come under one flag of Jesus Christ, and we're all serving the same God, and we're all using the same scripture, just stop the division and the hatred towards one another. And as he sings in this incredible song, he still believes that God can do this. He still believes that God can bring us together once again, as he has done in the past. Would you join with us today and pray for unity? Unity in the sense that we are all one as the body of Christ, and we have come together to serve and to do nothing but obey him and do what pleases him. Thank you for listening, everybody.
The Wildman and Steve Show is now partnering with New Release Today. Find out more about them at newreleasetoday.com. And don't forget to check out our website, where you can also leave us a review at wildmanandsteve.com. Thank you for listening, everybody, and we will see you next time.